welcome everybody. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have a Christmas event again this year. I suppose little did we think we'd be in the same situation another year on, but we are delighted to have Eoin back with us for another festive cook along this time round. So we have some great recipes lined up, and a few of us will be trying them at the same time as Eoin, so we'll see how they go. So I'll pass over to you now, Eoin.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very, very much. So good evening, guys. I actually understand 6 o'clock is a tough time for everyone. I know that it's busy with if you have kids and come home from work, whatnot. So I appreciate you coming on now. And if people are coming in a little bit later, that's absolutely fine. This has been recorded, so please feel free to go back, watch it at a later time. And I would imagine most people were here last year. I'm sure there's some new faces, or if you couldn't get to last year's session. So I'll give a brief intro into who I am, what I do, why I'm here. I'm sure a lot of you would notice by now anyway. And then it is a Christmas themed event. I see some phenomenal hats and jumpers being worn in the virtual audience there behind me, and even some setups that are actually nicer than my own setup here, Festive Kitchens. So that's the idea here. And it's the same as last year. We'll kind of run through. I actually have 4 and a bit recipes. One is a mimosa. I'm actually not going to count that as a recipe. It's literally just orange juice and prosecco. But we're going to start with that because I don't know how stressful your Christmases are. But a mimosa is quite nice on the morning of Christmas, or any morning throughout the festive period, if you do need that little kicking boost in the morning. So we'll start with that, and we'll run through the day. So we'll do some French toast to start as well. If you have kids around the house in the morning time, or for yourself, it's a really nice, quick, fast, quite a nutritious breakfast to do in the morning time. And then we'll do the canapes, the leftover turkey curry, and then a really nice and easy tiramisu, single serving tiramisu to finish. Okay, so I suppose first things first, if you want to all mute your cameras, that way you'll keep me center stage, you'll keep me center screen. If I'm not fully filling your screen, there's 3 dots at the bottom of your screen. You can click that and that should maximize me on your screen. So you should be able to see me all in the camera with my frying pan here and my hot plate in front of me. I'll be coming forth and back to the camera showing you what's on the plate anyway. So if you can't see, you don't have to be straining. I will come as close. And if you miss anything, or if you need me to go back or touch on anything, or just a general question, please feel free to unmute, ask it out loud, or you can put it into the chat box and we'll address them all at the end. It's often an easier way if people don't want to be talking or unmuting, or if it's too much hassle, put it into the chat box towards the end or throughout the demo. I'll stop, we'll check, and I'll answer all questions that you may have. Okay. So my name is Eoin Sheehan. I am 25 years old. It's the same speech as last year, but I'm a year older, basically. I'm 25 and I'm a chef here from Limerick. So usually what I would do is I would be in the building itself in front of you with a setup with a table, and I'd be cooking in front of you. Unfortunately, the last year and a bit has been very, very different. And what I do now is I do it virtually. So it's been a blessing and a curse to a degree. Everything is virtual, which comes with its own headaches, but it allows us to cook together from our own homes, something that we kind of wouldn't have done in the past. You would have just watched me and you would have had to take my word for it that the food was good. And you just be based off the smells and the actions, whereas now you can physically cook along with me. And it's a little bit more interactive and personal. I'm from West Limerick, live in the city. I actually am a chemical and biochemical engineer by trade, studied that in college, hated engineering, took up cooking when I was in the middle of my engineering degree. And by the time I finished college and I got my degree, I was already, working as a chef. I own a meal prep service called Country Munch here in Limerick. We do ready-made meals, so we prep breakfast, lunch, and dinner for people who don't have time to cook or don't have the skill set. And then from that, my own brand grew, and I do a lot of demos, and I work on TV and Virgin Media. And I suppose in a nutshell, I travel the world virtually now, teaching people how to cook and teaching people how to feed themselves. And my aim here isn't to make you all chefs. I don't want you to quit your jobs tomorrow and pursue a life in food. I want to make your lives as easy as possible, especially over the Christmas period when cooking is more prevalent, cooking is more stressful. And if we're not used to it, it can get on top of us. So that's my job tonight, is to add some entertainment, add some fun, fill the void of your Christmas party, but also give a helping hand over the Christmas period and throughout your days and months in future in the kitchen. Something I say tonight might be a helping hand. It might flick a switch, or it might make your life a little bit easier. And one thing that will definitely make your life a little bit easier is a mimosa, if you're partaking. Again, please drink responsibly. I always am obligated to say that. You do not have to partake in this. Actually, there's alcohol in it quite a bit, and we're doing whiskey and tiramisu as well. But the idea here, and I suppose this is what the menu was created for, is I'm pitching Christmas Day or any of the festive days, Stephen's Day or whatever day it may be. And I'm starting from the morning and I'm going all the way through the day to the end of the day, which is quote unquote dessert. And mimosa or a nice, easy to drink is a nice way to start the day. If that's, and I say start the day, I'm not saying 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm saying when we're just starting to get cooking at home. And for example, Christmas Day at home for me is I'll go back home to my mother and father's house, and maybe around 11, half 11, 12, myself and Mam will start to prep dinner. We'll usually aim to eat for 3 or 4. So we're about 4 or 5 hours prior to that. And usually there'll be a glass of wine or something handy just to have, just for the occasion that it is. But a mimosa is another option. Really, really nice. Very common, like a bottomless brunch. And all you need is literally 2 ingredients, orange juice and champagne or Prosecco. It's equal parts 1-to-1. So 1 part champagne or Prosecco into your flute or into your champagne glass or whatever you may have. Now I'm going to be somewhat cautious because I am working. And what a job I do have. So 1 part mimosa, 1 part orange juice, if you can get it in nice and neatly. And it's a really nice, soft, refreshing drink. Maybe you want to count it as one of your 5 a day because it's orange juice. I won't stop you. But again, it's just a nice, and even for what it is, it's a Christmas party. It's no harm to have some bit of a drink in our hands. So even if you can't have a mimosa, I understand you're probably working tomorrow, so I won't be pitching for you to go on the lash tonight. But it's a nice, soft, easy drink to make. 2 ingredients. So, often when I do these cocktail sessions, we have cocktails that have 4, 5, 6 ingredients, and you have to go, you're looking for certain syrups or peach snaps or whatever it may be. Whereas this really, really is quite simple. You could put a nice orange wedge on this as well if you wanted to be fancy about it. And it should just be those contrasting notes of the sweetness and the sugar from the orange and then the slight fizz and sharpness from the Prosecco. So can't really go wrong with that. And that is just the perfect start to this demo for me personally anyway. Okay, so it's Christmas Day, it's Christmas morning, it could be Christmas Eve Day, it could be Stephen's Day, it could be after New Year's. We've had our drink in our hand, we're happy, we're in a good place. I suppose first and foremost, and this is something that I'll do at home as well, I'll sit down and I'll write out what's going to be made today. Okay, so that's what I've been doing for the last hour before this event, is I'm looking at all my ingredients, I'm looking at what I have to cook, and I'm doing the kind of timing in my head. So, for example, with Christmas dinner, and I'll keep just sticking with that because that's probably the most important dish we'll do this Christmas. When I'm looking at that, what I'll do on maybe Christmas Eve is I'll write out all the components. So we have turkey, the ham, the roast potatoes, the veg, maybe the gravy, the sprouts, all the components in our dinner. And it could be very different for you. You could be doing a goose, you could be doing duck, you might be doing no meat at all. You could be doing a mash, you could be doing different veg. The world is your oyster and it's completely personalized. But it's no harm to write them out and see what are the cooking times required. So realistically, the turkey is going to take the longest. So we're going to prep that. With that comes the stuffing. So on the day before, I'll probably prep the stuffing. I might even make the gravy. I could peel my carrots, peel my parsnips. I could prep my Brussels sprouts. And all of this is just giving me back a little bit of time on the day itself. So that's where we lose time when we're cooking food. It's the prep, it's the peeling potatoes, which could take 40 minutes. And if you don't account for those 40 minutes, then you're constantly under pressure then. So that's always my number one rule, is do as much prep work as possible initially. Get all of that done first. Maybe it's that morning early, maybe it's the day before. You don't need to make cranberry sauce fresh that day. Nor do you need to make gravy. You can make a basic gravy stock and add in your turkey juice and heat it up on the day. The likes of the turkey, the likes of the ham, probably done fresh today. You could have the ham pre-boiled and then just glazed and roasted on the day. The roast potatoes you'll do on the day. The veg you'll probably roast on the day. But just keep that in mind. And that's what we're kind of doing here is we're timing, we're watching what we're doing, and we're just making sure that we're not caught for ring space. We're not caught for time when we're watching stuff roast or boil. We're always busy. We're always doing something as another part of the dish is cooking, okay? So mimosa is done. Breakfast time, really, really important. It's going to fuel us for the day. And this is a nice one. If you have kids at home running around the place while they're opening the presents, a really quick and handy one to do is French toast. So again, it's one that it's actually one that's really popular out in like brunch places now. And I see it more and more on menus, and which is fantastic. It's a really, really simple dish to make. And the more people try it, the more people will be inclined to make it at home. So all we need, we'll take a little bit of butter for the pan in a couple of seconds. We're going to get 2 slices of bread. We're going to get 2 eggs, a little bit of cream, and some cinnamon. Okay, so we'll crack our eggs into a large glass bowl here, like so. We'll whisk them up. So again, you can make this in a smaller batch. You can make it in a bigger batch. I'm doing 2 eggs, and I'll do maybe about 50 to 100 mils of cream. Milk will work fine as well. I just happen to have cream here beside me, so it'll be a little bit more indulgent. If I was making it for myself at home, I'd probably just use milk. It's a little handier. I might readily have cream in the fridge, and also be a little bit healthier too. So just start to whisk up the cream and the eggs. Okay, just break down the yolks to get a really kind of nice off yellow color. And again, you're getting a beautiful richness already from that cream. So it's already quite an indulgent breakfast as it is, okay? We'll do a small pinch of cinnamon. Personal preference, you don't necessarily have to use it if you don't like it. And I mean, say now, a quarter of a teaspoon, because we can top it with some cinnamon later on. Pop that in. Oh, I do love cinnamon, so I'm all for it. If you don't, by all means, leave it out. Give that an all stir through again, and then we'll finish out with a tiny little bit of vanilla essence. Again, not essential. If you have it, brilliant. It'll just give a really subtle hint of vanilla to the French toast, okay? So give that a toss and a stir, and it's just all mixed up in our bowl like so, okay? Now what we'll do, I have a frying pan on here and a medium to high heat. Doesn't have to be crazy high. We'll get a small little knob of butter, pop that into our pan, let that start to just ever so slightly melt and froth, okay? When we're cooking on a frying pan, question I really commonly get asked is what oils, butter or olive oil or extra virgin olive oil or rapeseed oil or coconut oil, and the end, you know, to be honest, it's really up to yourself. With sweet desserts or sweet breakfast, I usually go with butter. Oil will work fine, but you just be conscious of whatever you're using will flavor the dish. So we kind of want to keep that richness and the butteriness from the bread with the butter in the pan, okay? And the butter will do that. If we use a coconut oil, we'd be getting a coconut flavor. And there's nothing wrong with that, but coconut will give that flavor. And if you don't like that, then you may not necessarily want that in your breakfast, okay? So let that butter start to froth. What I've done, I've gotten out my slice of bread. I pop that into my egg, cream, cinnamon, and vanilla mixture, and just let it sit and soak fully in the egg mix, okay? Now, it doesn't have to take too long. The bread will be quite absorbent. It'll soak it up, and you can do whatever bread you have at home. Excuse me. It could be sourdough. It could be a cut of any rustic bread, a normal sliced pan. It works fine as well, okay? And just let that sit and soak, and you'll see it'll just start to absorb that beautiful egg mixture. So it's kind of like a cousin of pancakes. It's really similar in the making to a degree. All it is just it's a little bit more, I suppose, a little bit more volume, and we're adding the bread as opposed to the flour, okay? So I can see the butter is just starting to foam here ever so slightly. I have quite a bit of butter there, but I'm going to have 2 slices, so don't be too put off by that. And what I'll do, once it's starting to just shimmer, there's a nice little bit of heat there. It's not spitting, it's not incredibly hot. I'll take my slice of bread from the egg, cream, vanilla, and cinnamon mixture, pop that into my frying pan, into the butter. On one side, I get my second piece of bread into the egg mixture. let that soak that all up. And we just fry our bread on both sides for about 2 minutes. So minute to a minute and a half this side. We'll flip it over once you have a nice golden brown color, and we'll do the exact same on the other side. So it's a really quick and easy breakfast to make. And again, just multiply up the quantity of that mixture if you're making it for 3 or 4 people. So if I had 6 slices of bread, I'd do maybe 4, 5, 6 eggs. I'd do a nice bit of milk, cinnamon, vanilla, whisk that up. And you can just keep increasing that to suit the bread itself. Now, it does go a long way. And you'll find I just use 2 eggs there and about 100 mils of cream or milk, and I'll easily get 2 slices of bread and some more maybe. So, you know, you don't have to go crazy, and it does go quite a bit of a way. So that's my second slice in here. I'll ramp this up a small bit, and we just let them fry for a couple of seconds, okay? So I'll just get a fish slice so I can flip these over. If you have any questions, please do shout them out. Or if I'm going too fast, or if I said anything that doesn't make sense, please flag it, please unmute, or please put it into the chat box, and I'll more than happily answer that. But that's what we're looking at here. Is the toast is just toasting on the pan itself, and what's happening is just the eggs are cooking. It's like fried eggs or scrambled eggs, but they're cooking within the bread, and you have that beautiful kind of sweetness and the cinnamon, the autumnal flavors of cinnamon. And again, the best part of this is the toppings, whatever you choose to use after this. So I have a plate here. We can serve these up in a couple of seconds. And again, you see that butter is being absorbed by the bread. That's kind of why it's adding a nice richness. It's benefiting the dish is the best way to describe it. Okay, so we'll take our first slice, pop it over with a really nice golden brown color, and you'll start to see it will color quite quickly. Because of the eggs, they're quite delicate. They don't take that long to cook. So once our pan has a nice high heat, and you can hear it more so than anything else, keep an eye on it, because again, the bread, the eggs, does not take long to cook itself. Okay, so we give that a couple of seconds. I can toss my second slice as the pan is getting hotter. And to top this, I'm going to keep it really simple, and I'm going to do a little dusting of icing sugar. And I have some blueberries, but it's the exact same as if we're doing pancakes. It kind of completely up to yourselves, personal preference. You could do Nutella, you could do peanut butter, you could do whipped cream and strawberries, you could do fruit, have them as they are. There's endless options and quantities. And that's really, really down to yourself and what you enjoy to have in your breakfast. But it's a really nice one to do, especially if you're kind of feeding a crowd at home. So again, in my eyes, these are being done in the frying pan. We're just taking them off one by one. One slice goes off, another slice is dipped in egg that goes on. And you have this kind of layout then of your berries and your Nutella, your peanut butter, your cream, maybe your sugar and lemon, whatever it may be. And you just serve them up, and people are happy out. And again, that will kind of fill them for the morning time as you can carry on cooking the dinner. Or please God, maybe your partner is cooking the dinner this year, and you're allowed to sit back and just sip away on your mimosas or your wine for the day. Maybe you're being let take the break this year. So either way, we'll get our slice of French toast off. I can leave that pan on the heat because we're going to use that in a couple of seconds anyway. So that's our French toast, really nice golden brown color. It just starts to crisp up on the outside. You get a really nice kind of toasted color. I suppose warm golden color is the way to say it. Some blueberries over the top. Again, they add a nice pop of color and also freshness and fruit, which is great. And we get a little bit of icing sugar just for sweetness. There's not a whole pile of sweetness in the dish per se. The sweetness would come from the toppings themselves, if that makes sense. There's no sugar in the mixture or anything like that. So you kind of need to sweeten as you prefer. So a little bit of icing sugar. And again, this is great because icing sugar, even though it looks pretty and adds nice sweetness, you never really use a huge amount of it. You know, it's been dusted onto it. So especially if it's and it usually isn't a health conscious decision on Christmas morning, but throughout the year, forgetting about Christmas for a second, it's a really handy dish, a really handy breakfast to make in the morning time. And it can be quite healthy. Again, it's eggs, because it's protein, it's carbs from the bread and fiber from the bread, and then your berries and your fruit, however you like it, okay? So breakfast done. Again, some maple syrup, some honey over that goes really well as well. and it's a really quick and easy breakfast to make, not only at Christmas, but at any time of the year, okay? So we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll set this over here, and it can be hypothetically eaten. So we'll look at the canapes now, okay? And what I mean by that is they're kind of small little finger food platters, and they're ones that I use year in, year out. I do them for demos, I do them at home, I do them for catering events, and the more I've done them, the more I have, I suppose, found the perfect match in, if I'm doing a trio, the best three that I have found to do are the three that I have here. And one of them is black pudding and relish. And that was inspired by my father, because my father is a countryman from West Limerick, Pallaskenry. He's a farmer. So when I approached him with the canapes, and one had goat cheese, walnuts, and honey, he turned his nose up to that because he didn't know what goat cheese was, in fairness to him, and I can't blame him. And the other was prosciutto and Basil Pesto. And it was just this foreign foods to him, being the man in his 60s who has just been a farmer all his life. So the one that I did make is black pudding and relish, like a nice ketchup for all the world, is how I describe it to him. And he loved it. And the more that I do them, the more common the black pudding has become. I think, people in Ireland particularly love black pudding. It reminds them of breakfast time when they were younger. It reminds them of breakfast rolls. And it's a really, really beautiful canapé to do, because you kind of get the best of everything in a small little bite, okay? So that's what I'm doing here just quickly. First, I'm going to fry up some black pudding. That's going to be one of our canapés. I have some relish. I'm using Ballymenu relish tonight. Not a sponsor, not an ad. It's just one that I really, really like to use. And any relish will work fine. Lidl and Aldi have great ones as well. So they'll go on to one canapé. Another canapé that we'll do is the Italian one that I was talking about. So we have some prosciutto, crudo, prosciutto cotto, whichever one you like, either raw or cooked is all that means, crudo and cotto, it's Italian. But any cured meats will do. Salami, pepperoni, even thinly sliced piece of ham after Christmas would work fine. I always suggest that. If you have some ham left over, it goes great with these, not only in sandwiches. And that will go with our basil pesto or your red pesto, whichever one you want. Okay? And then the last one will be our goat cheese, walnuts, and honey. So it is really simple, and the only cooking you have to do is fry up the black pudding. I'm going to get just some fresh French baguettes. So usually you get the big long one. I happen to have smaller ones here today. I'm going to cut nice and carefully, just small finger food size pieces of the bread, okay? Kind of squish them up with my fingers, spread them out so we get a little bit more surface area, make them more circular, okay? So it's little small bite-sized pieces of the bread. So we'll make 1, 2, 3. We'll do 2 of each. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Keep the ends. And my mother will say we give them to the hens. And I'll do a second one here. So again, this works great. Any bread will work as well. You don't have to be a French baguette. Sourdough works fantastic with this as well. Or any bread if you find it's kind of going off or it's getting hard, because what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of oil in our pan here beside the black pudding. And we'll just quickly toast up these pieces of bread. So if it is going to be stale, the heat will wake it up a little bit, and you won't necessarily get that hard crunch from the staleness, because it'll go quite crispy and it'll be really, really useful. And even at Christmas time, if you have stale bread, don't throw it out, blitz it up and use it for your breadcrumbs, okay? So there's plenty of uses at Christmas time for these kinds of things, okay? So I'm just going to topple over my black pudding. Again, black pudding is great. You can actually eat this raw, but we'll get a nice kind of quick and fast seal on the outsides of the black pudding. Should just be kind of glistening in the light there. That's all that is. This is the fats are being pulled out. And it's kind of nice because we're cooking the bread in those flavors too, okay? So let them toast up for a couple of seconds. And as we do that, I'll just get a nice kind of fancy chopping board here to present these on. Don't worry, no, I'll go back through these three again. Okay, so we'll just top these over again. So again, just a nice golden brown color on the breads. You can pop them into the toaster, you can pop them into the oven, you can pop them onto the George Foreman. I'm conscious at Christmas time, hob space is not delicate, but it's hard to find. You might have the ham, you might have the veg, you might have the potato, so you might necessarily get a ring to do some frying on. So into the oven will work fine as well for the bread pieces. And what we'll do then, so we'll take off 2 at a go. So our first 2 are here. I'll take some of my relish, or a chutney would work lovely as well. About a teaspoon, if even, just cover it, make sure you cover the surface on each of the toasted breads. Okay. And then from there, we'll take a piece of our black pudding, pop that on top of the relish, and you have this beautiful kind of contrast of the cool relish, the hot black pudding, and also then the kind of toasted bread itself. If you want to be fancy, take some parsley. Just a little bits of garnish. Depends if you're feeding a crowd. I know myself, if I'm feeding a crowd or if I'm versus feeding my family, presentation is very, very different. When I'm feeding my family at home, it usually doesn't get to the plate before it's pulled out of my hands. So there's our first 2, black pudding, relish, and some toasted bread. So really, really simple. And again, I even appreciate seeing it in person. It seems very, very easy, but it tastes amazing. And it's really, really quick and fast. And it's one that I always encourage, especially at Christmas time, if you get a call saying that the in-laws are coming over, the cousins are on the way, and you need to whip up something, this is a great one to do, because you can just chop the bread up, throw it on, fry the black pudding, and then make up the canapes really quickly, leave them on the table, and everyone can kind of come and go as they please then. So you're not kind of standing over the cooker for an hour or 2 waiting. Okay, so for the rest of them, let's pop this up here for a second. I can knock this down. For my middle ones, I have some Basil Pesto. Get that in a stir. Make sure that's mixed with the oil. So a nice mix spread of our green Basil Pesto. Really easy to make fresh too if you want. Just literally basil leaves, pine nuts, lemon juice, some Parmesan cheese. So Basil Pesto, we'll get some fresh prosciutto. Stick that on top. That'll stick to the Basil Pesto itself. And again, salami, pepperoni, prosciutto, speck. There's loads of cured meats that work really well for this. Or the ham you use for Christmas dinner. Another really kind of common and popular one to use this time as well. And then the last one, which is a little bit more out there, but is just as delicious, in my opinion, is our goat cheese and walnuts. So again, the reason this works so well is that we have a soft, sharp goat cheese. You have the crunch from the walnuts and then the sweetness from the honey. So individually, they're all great, but when you put them together, the harmony between them all is fantastic, and they work really well together. And it's hard to understand it until you taste it, and then you just kind of understand the feel in your mouth, which is a really common thing in food. The how it feels in your mouth, which sounds a bit bizarre, but it genuinely is a really popular thing. And that's why a lot of food is created, is how the textures contrast with each other. So soft, sharp cheese, bite and crunchiness from your walnuts, sweetness from the honey itself, okay? So that's our goat cheese in the bottom, walnuts. I just have a little bit of honey here. It was actually so cold in the studio a while ago, I had to melt down the honey. That's why I'm getting it from a cup. And it's fresh honey too, that's why it melts down. And that is what we're looking at here. So I'll line these up better so you can see them on camera. And I'll come closer to you so you can see as well. So you can see how quick I make them, and that's the aim of the game, is that it's a quick get out of jail card for if people are coming over. So our first one, toasted bread, relish, black pudding. Our middle 2 is our basil pesto, prosciutto ham, toasted bread. Our last few, goat cheese, walnuts, honey on top. Okay, really nice. They're all different colors. They look visually appealing, and that's a big thing of food. If it looks nice, if it looks appetizing, we're already halfway there. And they do taste nice too, which is half the battle. Okay, and that's the idea, is that you can make these up, pop them down in the middle of a table. People can come and go as they please. And it works for starters for Christmas Day. It works for hosting, for parties. It works in a rush, in a hurry, for trying to feed people who are coming over. And it's just one that every single year I find myself going back to. when I do demos and events, it's one that people will always kind of resonate with and stick with. And I get an awful lot of photos from people then throughout Christmas or throughout the year, sending me photos of their little canapé starters for their own pleasure at home or for parties or events. And I love to see it. And it's just because I think we often have a lot of these sauces and stuff at home. We often have a relish, goes really well with sandwiches and other dishes too, or omelets. Pestos are the same, wraps, baps, sandwiches, pastas. Pestos work really well with. So, you know, why we have them at home, it's great to be able to find a use for them. Both pestos and then the goat cheese as well. So these are just things that handy to have at home at Christmas. We can use them quick in a hurry. And again, I always say, it nearly gives the perception that, you know, a lot of time and work has gone into this. And, you know, it's like a Michelin star, small little canapé foods that look really fancy, but literally it's only a matter of minutes, and having the ingredients handy is the main thing. And again, you give this perception of being a fancy and well-trained and well-thought-out chef, when in reality, it can be thrown together in a couple of minutes to feed as many as you like, okay? And oftentimes, again, feel free to just do the platter of black puddings, or just do the platters of prosciutto or the goat cheese. So pick and choose as you see fit, okay? Does that make sense to everyone? Hopefully. I don't want to be rushing through this, or I hope I'm not going too quickly. But again, that's the aim of these demos, is that you shouldn't just be standing there watching me fry a curry for 20 minutes here. It should be little tips and tricks and points that can be used at home. And, you know, it's great to be able to whip up a dish in a couple of minutes. As much and all, and as great and all as it is to work and cook for an hour and create this beautiful dish, I love being able to make a breakfast in under 10 minutes, or make a selection of canapes that can be kind of out the door quickly. That's just, I think it's handier. I think it's more realistic. And that there's a place for everything in the kitchen, you know, and there's a place for cooking too in that regard. But hopefully these are making sense, and hopefully they'll be able to be implemented throughout your festive time as well, okay? So if there's no questions, please do shout them out if there is. If not, we will keep moving along. Or if you're cooking along from home and you need another second or two, please do shout out as well. I understand some of you are cooking. So if you are, and you need me to slow down, or you need just to wait 2 seconds, please feel free to ask. Okay.
Owen, can I
Yes.
ask you a quick question? It's Morna here. How are you?
Please.
It's looking fab. It's definitely appealing to my culinary skills anyway, which are useless. So thanks a million. But I'm just wondering, I say I'm allergic to garlic, and there's a lot of garlic in all different foods. Is there any substitute that you could recommend that you could use, kind of, that gives it just as much flavor for festive kind of Christmas dinners, and that you could add that would give a little bit of thing that doesn't make me sick?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you will find, I even find now, just in general, garlic has become much more prevalent in recipes, and it's hard to know why. I think Italian cuisine has a big impact in Irish food. If you look at the restaurants in Ireland, most of them have Italian food or have Italian origin, and that's like the kind of golden rule. If you're a chef, if you want a successful restaurant, you usually stick to Italian, but Irish people love that. As substitute for it, there's no one thing that would give that garlic taste. Like, you know, especially nowadays, there's a substitute for everything. There's a substitute for, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you know, there's I've seen vegan chorizo and vegan meats and vegan chicken and all that kind of stuff. For garlic, off the top of my head, I would assume garlic powders would have the same effect on you. They're a really good substitute if you don't have fresh garlic. But if that can't be done either, oftentimes it depends on the dish itself. So for an Italian dish, I would probably get a sweeter shallot onion. Hopefully you can eat them, or they don't play too much of an effect. But that would give a different taste than a red onion or a white onion. Shallots, so a little bit sweeter, a little bit easier to cook and cut with. With Asian cuisine, we will be looking at the likes of like ginger and garlic. I'd leave out the garlic, but if you could use like a thumb of ginger, the onions, again, shallots would work really well, and then other veg, you would get away with it. And again, there's no, I suppose, blueprint. Replace garlic with this and you'll get the same impact. The best thing for you is to kind of focus on a different flavor in there. So, you know, when I think of Italian, and I lived and worked in Italy for 8 months and worked in kitchens there, garlic is a prevalent flavor, but so is fresh basil and fresh herbs. So when you're thinking of the cuisine, especially if you're cooking it, focus on a dish that garlic isn't the main star of the show. People wouldn't be expecting that flavor there. And you can kind of really double down then. If it's a curry, you double down on the cumin and the spiciness or the sweetness with a chutney in the curry. Or if it's Italian, it's the richness of the tomatoes in the tomato sauce and the fresh basil and the Parmesan cheese. So I wouldn't let it hinder you too much. I can't see it. As I always say, you know, if you have it, great, use it. If you don't, go on anyway. And that's with a lot of my recipes. I don't like people going out and purposely buying one thing to use for this dish, but they'll never use again. So even when I'm writing recipes, I'll usually just say use whatever veg you have at home in the press or in your fridge, I should say, as opposed to buying an aubergine that will roast, but you'll never use it again. Now you have soup and stuff like that, but there is ways around it. I would just focus on the other elements of the dish and make them the forte in the front. And again, when we're seasoning it, and garlic will never be the be all and end all of a dish anyway, unless it's a genuine garlic dish itself. Focus on the seasonings, focus on the spice, the sweetness, the sourness, the acidity, the presentation, the salt, the pepper, all that kind of stuff. That will carry you the rest of the way. And no one will be asking for garlic or anything in a dish. I promise you.
Thanks a million, Eoin. I appreciate that.
No bother.
Thanks a million.
Great question. Again, guys, any other questions, please feel free to shout them out. It's absolutely no panic. I love chatting about it. So if not, or if you don't have any questions, or if you want to hold them off for another while, we'll move on to the turkey curry. I think I'm right in saying that. I am. 1, 2, 3. Cool. So in my eyes now, we'll skip Christmas dinner for a couple of minutes. We'll come back to Christmas dinner and I'll talk about that at the end of the demo. But I'm looking at Boxing Day now, Stephen's Day. And we've loads of leftover turkey. And we're sick to the teeth of using it in sandwiches. So some main courses that you can use up those meats with. And I say turkey, but ham is an easy substitute, or chicken is an easy substitute, or any other meats really at home at all. And curry is always a safe option here. It's always a good use. Another really common one that I do, and I could have done it here tonight, is like a turkey pot pie, where really what all we do is we'd make like a vol au vent sauce. This kind of, we make a roux with butter and flour. We'd add some milk. We'd get a white sauce. We'd add some cheese. We'd add our veg or onions or garlic, some peas. We'd add in our turkey. So it'd be like a vol au vent sauce, some mushrooms maybe. We'd put a puff pastry over it in the pan, put it into the oven, and you get this really nice puffed up pie. So that's an option. I have a recipe for that. If anyone wants that recipe, you can give me a shout after this demo and I'll send it on Instagram or an email or whatever it may be. But this is another really good option, and it's no harm. Actually, while I have you now and while we're on a chopping board, we'll go through knife skills. I probably went through them last year, but if someone's new here, it's good to know how to hold the knife, how to chop, and how to, I suppose, survive the Christmas period having all 10 fingers, okay? So a good chef's knife is really important. This is a chef's knife. This is a paring knife. See the difference in size, okay? So it's usually about 8, 10, 12 inches in length. How to hold it is we will get our thumb and our index finger. We'll pinch the blade of the knife, not the handle. We'll pinch the blade at the very back, like the back of its neck. And we'll wrap our 3 fingers around the handle, okay? So you can see there, my fingers aren't down here. They're tucked away at the very back, furthest point away from the blade. And our 3 fingers are wrapped around the handle. So we have a really good grip on the knife. And the reason this is the preferred way to do it. Now, by all means, if you're more comfortable holding it a normal grip, that's fine. But the flexion in our wrist isn't fantastic when we have just a normal grip. When we pinch the blade and wrap around, we have far better flexion in our wrist and we far more control as opposed to this, when it's not as natural. So again, we can kind of slight change in motion. Our fingers are safe. We have a good grip on the blade and the handle, and this is where the most of the work is done, in the center point of the knife. Okay, but it takes a bit of time to get used to. Practice that. Get a feel for your knife. Get the feel for the weight of it, and you'll be able to hold it and master it in no time. Okay. With our other hand, our fingers are curled backwards. Okay, so fingers curl back, and the flat of our knife will follow the front flat of our knuckles, like so. Okay, so I'll come closer. I want to make that really clear, because that's probably the most important part. Fingers are curled, flat of our knuckles, flat of our knife, flush against it. Okay, and our knife just goes up and down, following that groove on my knuckles. So what that looks like on the chopping board. Okay, fingers curl back, thumb is at 6 o'clock, fingers are up at 12 o'clock, and we're just hovering up and down. The flat of my knife is touching with the flat of my finger, and that's what's keeping the control. If I go up and over the fingers, it's a lottery hoping that it'll come down to where it is again. Okay, and if my fingers are open and flat, then again, you're asking for trouble. So nice and tight, nice and slow. Knife pressed against my knuckles in tight together, fingers curled back. And again, nice and slow. We're letting the knife do the work. We're letting the kind of motion of our hand take the use of the knife. And that's how then, chefs, when we're on TV or when we're doing these demos, I can get a piece of food here, put it flat side down so I know it's not going to roll away, curl my fingers back, talk, look around, and I'm very confident and sure that no fingers are going to be damaged there, because all my fingers are tucked and curled away. I know where my knife is, I know where the food is, and I know that so long as I keep this motion, I can stay in this same place. I can move my fingers back. That just takes a little bit of time to get that technique down. Again, please take your time when you start off, when you do this. If I was to show you and showcase and do it down properly, it's nice, controlled motion. So I'm just doing a little bit of bell pepper here for the curry. And again, see a little bit better. You can do a little bit faster. You can impress all your friends and family at home this Christmas as you fly through chopping the veg, prepping for dinner. Okay, so that's some red pepper. I have some white onion already done there a while ago, just chopped up here. I have 1 clove of garlic, as we were talking about it. To peel garlic, so it's just 1 clove. I'll probably use 2 in the dish. 1 is here, it's in the skin. Put it on the chopping board in its skin, the flat of our knife on top of the garlic. CPR, press it down. So we've crushed it. Now take just 1 pinch of the skin, and it should just pop out really easily without even having to peel or move it too much. The clove will just fall out of the skin once you crush it. Okay, really easy way. I see people peeling garlic for ages. Just crush it, it'll fall out of the skin. Once it's fully crushed down, another easy way is get a little bit of salt, which I have here behind me. Put the salt on the garlic. Get the flat of our knife again and push the garlic into the chopping board, the flat of our knife. And that salt will act as a little bit of grit, so it won't slip or slide away. And you'll be able to really quickly mince your garlic. So literally after a couple of seconds, I've just pressed it and pushed it into the board, and I've minced my garlic. I didn't even need to cut that or touch the garlic. So my hands are clean, they don't smell, and I'm not spending time chopping or leaving little chunks of garlic in the dish itself, okay? So we're going to get a pan on a medium to high heat. One last mouthful of the mimosa. And what we'll do here, so this is a Thai curry, a Thai themed curry. So we'll start with our veg, our onion, our garlic, our bell pepper. If you have some ginger, that'd be great as well. I have some Thai red curry paste here. If you don't have this, it's absolutely fine. Handy to have in the fridge as like a sauce or any other chutneys that you would use. It doesn't really go off that quickly, so you can keep it in the fridge. It'll keep for a long time. And it's just this curry paste. So all it is just like a mixture of these seasonings and spices into a paste, and it just makes a really quick curry. So a Thai red paste, you get them in nearly every food shop now. I have a little bit of sesame oil that I'll just use here. If you don't have it, it's no problem. But like we talked about a while ago, the oil will often set the theme in a dish. And sesame oil gives a really beautiful kind of nutty Asian theme. So it's a really nice one to start with. We'll get our garlic in there as it's just heating up. So I don't really want to burn the garlic. I just want to saute it. And we'll get our onion in there as well. And we just have to mix that around. So the beauty with this is that we're not really dealing with any raw meats here. We have our turkey already cooked and left over. So it's a really quick dish to make, and it's quite safe as well, okay? So as it starts to heat up, just get your onion and garlic in there, and you'll start to hear ever so slightly gently sizzle and simmer, and you'll start to smell the garlic. And that's what we want. We never really throw our garlic and onion into a roasting hot pan, because the minute garlic hits spitting hot oil, it goes black and it burns, and it gives a really bitter taste, which we don't necessarily want from our garlic or in our dish itself, okay? So we'll let that just come to temperature for a couple of seconds. You can add whatever veg you have at home into this. So I'm going to do bell pepper. You could do mushroom. You could do courgettes. You could do aubergine. You could do chickpeas. You could do broccoli florets, cauliflower florets, whatever you have at home. There is no right or wrong when you're cooking at home and when you're making these dishes. It's simply whatever you have, whatever you need to use. Just give something that has a little bit of a bite, like these pieces of onion. They will cook down slightly, but at least they'll give some substance and they'll give some texture and some bite to the dish itself, okay? So we'll just let that simmer, just come temperature so I can hear it, and then we can move on with this dish itself. Now, I've cheated a small bit. I have my rice already cooked, so that's what I will be doing now. And we talk about the timing and we talk about thinking about it. So as I start to make the curry is when I turn on the rice, 2-to-1 ratio of water. So my rice is into a pot, maybe 100 grams, 200 grams of water, put a lid in it, put on a medium to low heat, let that start to boil. That'll cook in 10 minutes maybe. So as we create the sauce, then our rice is boiling. I have that done here to the side of me, just to save some time and some hob space here as well, okay? Red pepper, I'm gonna pop into here. I can start to hear it fry. I'm smelling the beautiful garlic, mixing with the sesame oil. It makes a big difference. Really good investment to do if you want, you know, your Asian dish. If you do a lot of stir fries or curries, sesame oil is a beautiful addition to that. Very subtle, but it makes a really nice difference. Okay. So I can hear sizzling. Hope you can hear it too. Just put my ears closer to my AirPods. And that's a good sign. So we can kind of keep moving, and it's not ferociously frying. I'm not seeing burn or stick. It's just nice and gradual. We're getting there bit by bit. I'm going to add in my Thai curry paste. If you don't have a paste, that's absolutely fine. We won't stress over that yet. You'll just add more seasonings in a couple of seconds. So you'll see I'm going to add some cumin, whereas if you don't have the paste, then I'd be adding some curry powder, some turmeric, cumin, maybe some chili flakes, whereas I'm getting a lot of that in the Thai red curry paste. Likewise, I think I have a Thai green curry paste here too. I do. I actually saw it a while ago. Now, granted, this is a very big tub because we use a lot of things in big batches here, but it's just a paste curry. This is a green curry paste in parchment here, but that keeps for so long. We just keep that, especially in the production kitchen, in our meals. If we're doing like a curry, we're cooking a curry, we're using some Thai green, some Thai red, toss it up, and you get this beautiful flavor from either a fresh or a store-bought curry paste. So it gives you a nice kind of shortcut to a really nice dish, okay? So what I'm doing here, and I always emphasize this, whether you're using a paste or a tomato puree, put the paste into the pan while you're frying the veg and fry it off, because you sort of kind of caramelize that paste itself, okay? And that brings the flavors out. It wakes it up, especially if it's dormant in those fridges for a long time. It needs to be kind of woken up a small bit, okay? So it looks great. We've gotten the color. I can smell the curry paste. We'll do a little bit of cumin, okay? I don't need a whole pie because a lot of flavor is already in that paste. If you don't have the paste, use your cumin, use your curry powder, use your turmeric. All that helps. And now I'm getting some really nice Asian smells and colors in the frying pan. Keep working that around. It's sticking to the veg, which looks fantastic. Now from here, we'll just build our sauce, okay? So as it is a Thai dish. We're going to use some coconut milk. Okay. I'll use about a half tin. Yeah. Ish. We'll use probably the same half tin of chopped tomatoes, just regular chopped tomatoes. Give that a stir and incorporate that. So let that coconut milk mix with the veg, and you'll start to see it change color, and it'll start to soak up and absorb that curry paste and those cumin and all the spices that we used. And it's a beautiful kind of base to a sauce. It's kind of heavy, it's rich, it's creamy, and it absorbs seasoning really, really well. Okay, so we'll get a little bit of salt. Here it is. And some black pepper. I might just go on the hunt for some black pepper here. I definitely saw it very close 2 seconds ago. So salt and pepper, season it to your preference. Don't go crazy with the seasoning at this stage. Let this sauce kind of simmer a small bit, and then we can season more later on. We'll do a little bit now. Pepper more so than the salt, because again, other components can contain salt. So we can salt towards the end. Black pepper will add a little bit of spice and heat, which is great. Okay. So now we have a really kind of nice, kind of pale orange color. Hopefully you can see it here. The lights might tint the color a small bit, but it's a kind of off orange color. I have a little bit of soy sauce, about 2 tablespoons. Pop that in, stir that through. This will give a nice subtle saltiness and a little bit of depth of flavor to the dish itself, okay? So now you have this beautiful Thai red curry sauce. We have our veg softening inside of it. We'll taste that. If I have my spoon here, I do. Little taste of that sauce. And what I'm tasting for here is saltiness, spiciness, sweetness, and acidity, all S's, okay? Beautiful. Okay, so I quite like spicy food. I would probably add a few chili flakes. That Thai red curry paste isn't incredibly spicy, so be careful. Some of the ones you do buy could be quite spicy. Excuse me. So taste it first. Do it to your own personal preference. If it's incredibly spicy, add some water, add some lemon juice. Acidity will often dull down a dish a small bit. Okay, so I'll mix that through, and you start to see this will start to thicken up real nice and quickly now because of the coconut milk. Again, tastes absolutely beautiful, and it's so easy to make as well. Sauce with literally 2 ingredients, coconut milk and chopped tomatoes, and then we just team that with our spices. And the last component, obviously the most important, as it starts to thicken up, is our pieces of cooked turkey from the day before, or your cooked chicken, or any other meats. You could do lamb, even ham would work fine. We wouldn't be traditionally using ham in a curry, but again, there's no rules really when it comes to cooking. So we pop that in. We don't need this at the start. It's already cooked, so it doesn't really need that long cooking on the stove. We just literally seal it up, cover it up, and we'll give that a couple of seconds. We'll let that simmer here beside me. That's pretty much, it's done. All I need to do is let it thicken up. Okay. So we'll let that relax. I'll taste it again in a while, and we'll come back to it. But I'll make the tiramisu as that's thickening up. And again, it's a good example of how we can be efficient and multitask in the kitchen. So as our curry, put it on a medium to low heat, maybe on a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to push it to the side ever so slightly, so you don't really need to see that anymore. Does that make sense to everyone? Hopefully it does. It's a really kind of nice, quick, easy curry dish. But it's a great one anytime, not even Christmas, any day of the week. And again, if you're using just regular meat, or if you're cooking with raw meat, which say I probably fry the meat with the veg initially, fry off until it's just browned. It doesn't have to be fully cooked because it'll cook towards the end, but brown it off with the veg, then season, then add your sauce components, then the soy sauce and the Thai, or the coconut milk and the chopped tomatoes, and then you'll be at this stage too, okay? So, final piece of the puzzle. Hopefully, it's all making sense, and I hope I'm conscious I don't want to just be standing here cooking for 2 hours as you watch. So I'm trying to keep attention spans and keep everyone happy as well. So please, if any questions, do shout. If I'm going too fast, please let me know. Hopefully it's all making sense. And this is the last one. This is my father's favorite dessert. One of my favorite desserts too. And it's a simple one to make, but it's absolutely delicious. And it's tiramisu, which means pick me up in Italian, tiramisu. And the reason the pick me up is often there is because we have beautiful whiskey. I often use, there's Jameson there. I use Tullamore Dew quite a bit. Any whiskey will work fine. And what we'll do is we'll get our whiskey, we'll pop that into our coffee, just about a shot and a bit, maybe. Now, it depends on how much you're making. So this is just coffee, 1 tablespoon of coffee, some hot water to mix the coffee, and then our whiskey in here. We'll do probably 2 tablespoons of sugar. If I have my towel here, yeah, clean the spoon a bit. So I have some sugar here, make sure it's not salt, just to sweeten the coffee and whiskey ever so slightly. Even a tablespoon will do, really. That's not that big of a dish here. If I was making a big tray of tiramisu, I'd probably do a bigger batch here, but I don't necessarily need it here for one small portion. Okay, so very, very good. Coffee, whiskey, and sugar in this bowl here. We'll put that aside for a second. We have amaretti biscuits, lady fingers. Okay, you can get them in most stores now, in Dunn's. I'll show you the packet, even if you're looking for them. Almond fingers is what they're called in this packet. They're often called lady fingers, and they'll be in the biscuit oil themselves, okay? But they're these beautiful kind of almond flavored biscuits, basically. And they're the sponge layers of the tiramisu. So to make the actual cream layer, I have 2 egg yolks in a bowl here. I have some whipped cream below me that I whipped a while ago. And I have some mascarpone cheese and sugar. So what I'll do, now, if you have a stand mixer, one of these with the stand mixer, I do downstairs here, but I'll just do it by hand. It'll be easier. But I would just do this in a stand mixer and let that do all the work. But 2 egg yolks, sugar. So I have about 2 egg yolks here, about 200 grams of sugar. If I'm doing a bigger batch, I double that. I do 4 egg yolks and then probably 400 grams of sugar. But just start to whisk this down, incorporate that together. You get this kind of pale consistency. And what we do is we add in our mascarpone cheese. So it's a soft, creamy cheese, mascarpone. So we'll just add that in bit by bit. About 200 grams as well. So I'll usually match mascarpone and sugar. In we go. Make sure you get it all in there. Waste not whatnot. And just start to incorporate that together. So it's the sweetness and the creaminess and a little bit of sharpness from the cheese as well, okay? And just start to work that together. And it'll come together really easily. So again, mascarpone is really, it's a really nice and easy mixture to work with. And just incorporate that with the sugar. And the sugar is already half broken down in there with the eggs. The eggs add a nice creaminess and richness too. So just for a couple of seconds, no harm. It's probably the only exercise you'll do all day on Christmas Day. So it's no harm. Unless now you're one of those people that goes running or swimming in the morning time, then God bless you. What I have here is that mixture. So that's our cream mascarpone. Sorry, I should say our mascarpone cheese, our sugar, and our egg yolks. So again, just beaten together, you get this nice kind of pale consistency. And then all we do is we fold in. I have my whipped cream here, okay? So just fold that in. I whipped it, I suppose, outside of the bowl, which is probably, it's a little bit easier, I think. You could just add your cream into that mascarpone now and whip it inside there, but it takes an awful long time. So whip it externally, about 100 mils of cream there. And just start to work that in. And again, it'll lighten the cream cheese. It'll lighten the load. It'll get a little bit more fluffy. It'll get a little bit more rich. The texture will change. You get this beautiful, sweet, cheesy cream consistency. And I think it often scares people when you say cheese, but again, mascarpone is as good as whipped cream. There isn't a strong cream taste or cheese taste of it. Taste a small bit. Beautiful. So again, you want sweetness. So it should be sweet. It should be creamy. It should have a very off taste then of the mascarpone. We'll do a small little bit of vanilla. I had it from my French toast a while ago. I hope it's not gone astray. Here it is, right beside me. A little bit of vanilla, just to add that small, subtle hint of vanilla to those kind of cream layers. Mix that round. That's good to go. So that'll sit in the fridge. It'll hold for a day or two. It's one of the things that you could do in advance. But the tiramisu in itself is a dish you can do in advance, okay? So let's have a nice one serving dish here. It's lovely. A glass works really well as well. I can't see one, or, you know, even worst case scenario, something like one of these, maybe probably a half the size of this, a Kilner jar. If you had a smaller one, I often do the layers and individually serve up these Kilner jars to people in. Not even a quarter size of this is far too big. But it's quite nice too, because you can visually see the layers themselves. But this is a lovely kind of serving size, really handy one to do that I often use. And the process here is we get our amaretti biscuits or our ladyfingers. We dip it in the coffee, whiskey, and sugar mixture. We place it in the bottom of our tray, okay? They only need to sit for a couple of seconds, because if you leave them too long, they will just break down and they'll be stuck and they'll break into the coffee. So just toss it and roll it in the coffee and whiskey. Put it into the base of your dish. I'll often get a spoon. Just press it down a little bit, just so you're kind of getting the full coverage of the bottom layer, okay? We'll get some of our whipped mascarpone mixture. We'll layer that on top. So it's a really kind of nice, thick, creamy layer, okay? So we'll do a nice, but we'll cover the top. Usually, rule of thumb here, I say, is I don't want to see any of those amaretti biscuits. Fully covered, fully layered on top. It'll take probably 3 or 4 tablespoons, depending on the size of the dish. It's a little bit bigger dish than normal, or a cup will say, so it's a little bit more. That looks good there now. And you see that will just sink and that'll set and that'll fill all the crevices anyway. And all we do is we repeat that process. More ladyfingers. Break them into our coffee, toss in the coffee, break it over the cream, cheese layer, mascarpone layer, I should say. Soaking up the coffee, soaking up the whiskey, but it's not overly strong. You know, that's kind of why we don't leave it sitting there for too long, because it's not a coffee or whiskey dish. It's just those little subtle hints of the coffee, a subtle hint of whiskey and sharpness from the whiskey in that biscuit layer, and that beautiful kind of almond biscuit layer. That's another layer on top. I can think that actually it'll spare me some room. We'll go again. Over the top, our sweet and rich cream mascarpone layer with a kind of subtle hint of vanilla as well. Some Italians might throw their eyes to heaven off they saw me putting vanilla in it, but I think it's nice. Over the top. And again, you just repeat this process until whatever container or jar you're using is filled to the top, okay? So oftentimes with a dish, it'll look quite different. It could be a large kind of pie tin. We'll do one straight layer of amaretti biscuits soaked. We'll do a layer of cream. We'll do a layer of amaretti biscuits. We'll do a layer of cream. And we'll just keep building that up and building that up until we get to the very top. And what we do then at the very top, so that's, I can't go much more or it's going to spill over the edges. We get a sieve. We get some cocoa powder. We'll put a little bit in. And we'll liberally dust it. It's important, the chocolate, because it's the only element of bitterness in there, and there's no chocolate in there. So you want to get enough on the top. So when you're thinking, when you're putting your spoon through the dish itself, I'm covering myself in chocolate there now. Could be worse things to cover, to be fair. When you're putting your spoon through the mixture, you're getting the chocolate, cream, amaretti biscuit, cream, amaretti biscuit, and putting out. So you're getting these beautiful layers. Granted, it may make a small bit of a mess when you're dusting it, but easy to clean, thank God. All those powders are. And what you're left with is the smashing single serving. Well, you'll get 2 out of that now, to be honest. tiramisu. And by right, you should let that chill and cool in the fridge for about 2 or 3 hours. It'll set a little bit better. The cream and the mascarpone will sink down. The amaretti biscuits will kind of fill out. And then when you cut it through, then you'll get those kind of nice, poignant layers of the food throughout them. It's a really beautiful dish to make. And again, do give it the time to sit in the fridge and set. I can cut that in a second just to show you what the inside will look like, but the curry is looking good here. So what we'll do is we'll get our curry, make a hole in the center here. You can see here, this is ticking down quite a bit. So what we'll do is we'll take our curry, pop that through the center into the middle, and you have those kind of chunks of turkey, the onion, the bell peppers, and that beautiful kind of rich Thai curry sauce itself. And you can see it's thickened up quite a bit from here. So I'll show that to you there. Usually what you want to do, you want to be able to pull the spoon through the center. So leave that on, that will thicken up. But it's a really great way to use up that leftover turkey. That rice I've used there is just a kind of leftover Cajun rice. A white rice, a brown rice, or basmati rice will work just fine. We'll get some of our fresh coriander or fresh parsley, whichever you have. Pop that on top. It's a beautiful looking, simple curry dish to make. Goes really well with like a naan bread. So if we look at this, if we were to look at what we've created, we have our curry. Sorry, I should start from the very beginning. We have our, what was a mimosa, which is nearly gone now. We have our beautiful canapes for the morning time. We have our breakfast, which is our French toast. We have our dinner, which is a Thai curry. And then we have our dessert, which is our tiramisu. So again, I don't want to, I suppose, overwhelm you with recipes and not even expectations, but if you could get one of these down, it will make a huge difference over the festive period. Or, you know, it might really make a helping hand in catering for some friends, or using some leftovers, or having a breakfast for the kids in the morning of Christmas, or a dessert to serve or bring to a party. The mimosa speaks for itself, but that's the idea. And like, to be honest, it kind of showcases, I'm not sure what the time is or how long I've gone over, but okay. I've done that in the bones of an hour. And you know, that in itself, now granted, I had a lot of prep work done, but it shows what timing and simplicity can do. Nothing here is too overly complicated. We have the kind of shortcuts of, we're using the sauces, the Basil Pestos and the relishes, the Thai red curry paste. Breakfast is simple. Tiramisu, you know, there's only a few components, just they work well together. And once we know how to do it, and once we can do it once, it pays dividends then to everything else. So that's all I'm going to cook. I think any more now and your heads will explode and you won't know what to be cooking for Christmas. But that would be my biggest tip. And I told you I'd come back and tip on, or touch on Christmas Day dinner. Everyone's Christmas Day dinner is different, but be prepared, plan ahead, write it out what it looks like, and then just get your timings down properly. And then it shouldn't be a stressful day. Once you're organized and once you know you have time, then it should be, you know, a labor of love is the wrong word because you mightn't love it, but it shouldn't be something that you're dreading. You know, I have friends who feed 13, 14 people on Christmas Day. Whereas my mother does a lot of the cooking for Christmas Day. We have 7. So again, all it changes is quantities, maybe different sides, maybe, you know, a dish that goes a little bit further, more canapes, all that kind of stuff. So it shouldn't be as stressful. And the biggest thing you can do is sit down, write it out. How long will this take to cook? Where is it going to cook? Have I the ring space? Have I to prep this now in advance? If I do the gravy and the cranberry sauce the day before or 2 days before, will that spare me half an hour? All these kind of bits and pieces. So I hope that makes sense. I hope it was enjoyable for you. And I'm here for as long as you want. If you have any questions at all, I understand it's your Christmas party. I hope you do have a drink at least tonight and enjoy it. And I do feel sorry for you that you can't meet up and head out and I suppose enjoy it together in person. But I hope this was of benefit to a degree. And I just want to thank you so much for having me again. Every year I appreciate it, and I hope that I bring some value when I do these demos and do these talks. And I hope you enjoy them as much as I enjoy giving them. So cheers.
Great. Thanks a million, Eoin. We definitely enjoyed that. And the canapes were absolutely lovely. I've been eating them away there while we've been watching.
Brilliant.
So thanks a million. And thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully we'll be back in person sooner rather than later. And we might even get you in person, Eoin, at some stage.
Yeah,
Hopefully
yeah, I'd absolutely love that. I'd love to meet you all. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, even after this or during the Christmas period, if you have any kitchen conundrums, please use my social media as like a helpline. Feel free to give me a message on Instagram or Facebook or email. I won't ask you to call me on Christmas Day. I'd rather you didn't. But if I can help, please do avail of it. I can't promise that I'll know the answer, but I can certainly try and be a helping hand. So that's why I'm here, and that's my job is to help in the kitchen at home. So have a great Christmas. Please don't stress over the food. Enjoy it all. It's a strange time for everyone. So I suppose look after each other. Enjoy the period. And yeah, please, hopefully next year things will be different and I'll be able to meet you all in person.
Thanks a million. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.